Hello. So today we're going to talk about some resistance type work, some resistance runners. In this video we have an exer-genie, which is just a type of pulley system if you haven't seen it before. I can leave a link to the website in the description. This kind of works for most things, prowlers, sleds, a coach pulling you along the track with the bullet belts, I think they're called. Just some do's and don'ts, things to look out for, some angles and positions you want to get into to really optimize acceleration mechanics, which is basically what resisted runs are used for most of the time. I mean, an alternative again is to go up a hill, and again, we could use these examples, the specific technical stuff as well, because it kind of applies across all different types of training for acceleration. So we have a guy here doing a 20 to 30 meter acceleration. I'll just play this 2 or 3 times so you can see it. Okay, so this guy does a pretty good job. If we slow things down, we talked in some previous videos about shin angles and attack angles, so you can kind of see whenever the foot's about to strike the ground, it's at a pretty reasonable attack angle. It hits the ground here, it changes a little bit, and by that I mean the position it hits at the ground should stay sort of the same. That should be, is about touchdown there. I don't know what that is, 50, 55 degrees. His low upper back's probably trying to keep him a bit lower, but that shin angle doesn't change too much. You can see there from when he finds the ground to when he leaves the ground. What I like about, actually the other side does it quite well too. What I like about this is the foot it's coming up pretty high and it's attacking from a nice high position. So again, I think we talked before about trying to hammer the ground, and the higher you can lift your foot, the more force you can put into the ground as long as it's in an optimal position to hit the ground from. So you can see here there's a nice big step up the foot and it whacks the ground pretty hard. And again, foot gets into a very nice position to hit the ground and whacks the ground hard again. As I mentioned there, you can kind of see, you can pretty much see a straight line from heel, knee, hip, shoulder, but when he's in the air, you can see then he likes to use his head. He drops his head down, rounds his shoulders slightly up here, and just to stay low for this. Which, I mean, it's not too bad considering he's accelerating probably at the same position for about 20 meters. So you'd like to see a sort of a steady rise of angles, but since this rope's forcing him to stay a little bit slower, it's forcing him to stay in a specific position for a longer period of time, which is kind of what you want the acceleration to do. You kind of want to be in the same position over a long period of time just to really work on some key concepts of acceleration. So those attacking shin angles, it shouldn't really change too much when they're finding the ground, when they leave the ground, having a foot in a nice high attacking position and having a straight line from ankle, knee, hip. It's not too bad there. Just a little bit curved. And the reason that's pretty important is it's just kind of like wasted energy. So if you have a stick, you want it to be pretty strong. So if you throw it at the ground, it can recycle the force and bounce off in another direction. If you have a stick and there's a bit of a crack in it, it doesn't go as far because something absorbs that energy that wants to be recycled and sent forward. So that's why people always like to cue nice straight lines, especially during the acceleration phase. You can never probably be perfect, but it's not too bad. One last small thing I'll talk about. It's not really talked about too much. One leg is usually a pusher, and one leg is usually an active, quicker moving cycling leg, let's say. So a good way to actually tell is where the leg is at touchdown. So if we use this, maybe this one at touchdown, you can see a bit of a gap here between the knees, which isn't too bad. That's pretty normal. What you want to do now is measure the difference in gaps, because as we can see here, this leg is much quicker coming through. So when this foot hits the ground, I don't even know if it's hit the ground yet, this leg is they're basically parallel to each other. Then you have this big, let's call this right leg the pusher leg. So it over pushes, it doesn't over push, it probably pushes more than the other side. And then we can see at touchdown, there's a little bit of a gap. And then this left leg's a faster leg. So at touchdown, there's less of a gap. Now again, you could try to cue some symmetry for this. People like symmetry, people like things to be even, but you'll never be completely even. As long as there's no niggles or injuries occurring on one side, if there does start to be, you could probably look at this first of all to see, is this the reason? Is someone over pushing on one side, or are they too active on another side? Maybe that's the reason they're getting hip problems, hamstring problems, back problems. I mean, it's good to be aware of these things. You don't need to find a problem and change it straight away, but having an awareness that something may be a precursor to problems down the line is probably something that a lot of coaches need to, even myself, need to be conscious of as well. That's all we'll talk about for this video. Let's try to keep it roughly, I'd say under 6 minutes or so, which isn't too bad. But yeah, I just figured it's a good time of year to talk about resistance running because everyone runs up hills, pushes sleds, pulls sleds at this time of year. So let's just make sure we're all doing the right thing. Goodbye.